Application consists of multiple pages, and we need to deploy this application on the server. This is my server, and this server consists of my web application. So multiple users will access this application via browser and internet. That type of application is called as web application. And how the user will access this application via browser. This is my browser. So generally, here what will happen? Browser will send the request to the server. How the request will go? By entering the URL. For example, if I try to type something like www.mygominds.com, so the request is going to the server. Server will search for the file. So first it will ask you to log in actually. Here I have something like enter username, one text box, enter password, one text box, and one button called sign in button. Once on the user enter the username and the password, hit this button. Now the request will go to the server. When the request is going to the server, what is happening in the server? A session is created on the server. So what is session? Session is a particular state management technique actually. Session is used to maintain the state on the server. So what state? What is the, if you want to store the data, variable is required. If you want to maintain the data, state is required actually. Variable is used to store the data, state is used to maintain the data. Data means what here? Username and password. So whenever user enter the username and password and click on the button, the request will go to the server and your user details will be maintained on. A session is nothing but an object that is created on the server. And for this session, an ID is created called as session ID. Session will maintain the data. Session ID is the ID given for each and every particular session. And once when the user will log in, the request will go to the server. Session is created on the server. And for that session, an ID is assigned. That is called as session ID. And along with the response one, session ID will again come back to the browser. Is it clear? And again, user will again click on inbox. Again, the request 2 will go to the server. Along with request 2, again session ID will go back to the server. Along with response 2, again session ID will come back to the browser. Between multiple client requests and responses, the session ID is traveled between client and server. And finally, session ID is stored in the browser in the form of cookie. Session ID, that is why in olden days, if you log into your Gmail with your username and password, one time you will log in. And second time again, if you open the same browser, another tab, again it will not ask you to log in actually. It will directly open that particular website. So where your username and passwords are stored in your browser in the form of what? Cookies. So where session is created, server. Where session is stored, server. Where session ID is created, server. Where session ID is stored, browser in the form of cookie. So if you delete cookies in your browser, if you delete the browser history, or if you clear the browser history, cookies will be deleted. Is it clear? And that session will have expiry time. The default expiry time of session is 20 minutes. Did you understood? If you want your session, if your expiry time is done, your session is expired. So you cannot access that particular application. If you want, you can increase the session timeout option will be there that you can mention in web.config file. In olden days, we use this mechanism. This type of authentication is called as stateful authentication. This type of authentication is called what? Stateful authentication. In olden days, we used to maintain the state of the authentication by using what? Session. One application consists of multiple pages. Application is nothing but a collection of what? Pages. End user want to access that particular application by submitting the request to the server. So 100 users means how many sessions? Anyone can tell? 100 users means how many applications?
One application. One application, 100 sessions.
One application.